This is a certified hood classic.
A plethora of organizations, campaigns, and political parties are all vying for the 41 million votes of Gen Z.
NorCal area, Central Valley,
Orange County, San Diego.
DCB Podcast presents the 2024 Youthalection Series.
Welcome to our 2024 Youthalection Series, where I come back from unretirement and go throughout the state to explore various places that many people may or may not know of to figure out what is going on with the youth vote. And for so long, we have tried to figure out why is it that our youth vote has been going up and down like a roller coaster. We've seen the youth vote underperform and overperform in various stances, where either the economy was in a recession or was overperforming than usual. But what this really means for this state, we are just a few weeks away from the 2024 election. The youth vote is expected to be the most unprecedented level than any other vote in America. But concerning with California in a minute, we realized that the youth vote is beyond essential towards addressing the needs of their communities wherever they are. This is the place where Gen Z meets the polls. And tonight, I have a very special guest whose background lies behind years of experience in local government and knowing what the hell is going on at the city council, both inside and out. He understands the quality of life in Merced, being at the heart of the Central Valley, and has a pretty deep insight as to where the future of Merced lives on. Our first stop is Merced. So please welcome Mr. Anthony Martinez, the Merced mayoral candidate of Merced. Mr. Martinez, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So first of all, how are you feeling?
I feel like now I need to be running harder than ever. I feel like they call it the campaign trail. They call it the campaign race. They call it running for office. And you don't really realize that until you're actually having to go door to door. You're actually having to go neighbor to neighbor, go to small businesses, and you realize, yeah, you are running. You're running all over the place. You're trying to do all these different things, get up all these different signs, host these different events, meet these different people, call these different people, talk to all these different people. And I would say that has been very profound in my understanding of what it's going to take to represent the people, is actually getting out there and speaking to the minds one-on-one, the business owners, the neighbors in the community, parents of children in schools. It's not just about, let me tell you what I can do. They want to be able to share their ideas with me. And that has been, in many respects, a revelation to hear what the community has to say to me about where they think our city should go. In many respects, it aligns with what I think. But in other ways, it even teaches me and expands my perspective. And maybe that's why I feel as good as I do right now, because the more I do that, the more I get out there and meet more people. It's like this whole journey is all about preparing me to be the mayor. It's all very difficult and trying, but it's worth it because I know it's refining me. I know it's helping me to evolve and making me into a better person that can understand more. And I know that when I complete it and get all the way through it and make it towards the end and be successful, then I will be prepared to be the type of mayor that I want to be for this city. And so it's really been going well, and I'm very happy that I pursued this, even though it is a lot of work and you do lose a lot of sleep. I probably got a few different bags under these eyes, but I got to say the knowledge.
I can hardly tell.
Well, it's been quite a journey, and it's been a true blessing to pursue this. And I'm really looking forward to keeping that pace or increasing that pace over the next 2 weeks until we get to the election.
Now, you lived in Merced most of your life. You were born and raised, in Merced at the heart of the Central Valley. How would you describe Merced in 5 words for those who don't know or pretend that they know stuff about Merced?
In 5 words? Oh, Jesus. Okay, let me think. Not everything is as it seems. Dang it, that's 6. Okay. I guess if I could summarize it, what I mean by that is that Merced may seem a certain way to outsiders, but once you know Merced, you realize how unique it truly is. You realize how special it truly is. And you realize that you can't just take a cookie cutter model that worked in Visalia or worked in Madera or worked in Mariposa or worked in Stockton and think it's going to work here. Mercedians, we sort of move to the beat of our own drum, a little bit different than the rest. But I think that's what makes it a beautiful community. I think that's what makes us uniquely Merced.
What I thought I was going to hear from you was drill, 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 cows and cows. which best summarizes what Merced is about, because you normally see this, anywhere you go, especially on the 99 freeway. But just moving on towards the first contender, of this series, it's really important to just emphasize, how we got here. And I remember that my last interaction with the city council ended off in a very big way, because on behalf of young people in general, like, we expect the city to grow in the way that we want to, which may or may not differentiate with what local residents may want to as well. But as an outsider myself, from the east side of LA, who just graduated from UC Merced, it's very hard for me to distinguish how different our perspectives can be in terms of shaping the future of Merced like we're supposed to. And the last time I've ever asked the city council to at least promise me that he is listening to young people is that we have still never gotten a Chick-fil-A up until this day. Now, the last time, and this is true, the mayor actually said that we are close to having Chick-fil-A open by the beginning of 2024. And now his administration is saying that that may not happen yet until 2026 on my birthday. And I hardly speculated, how the hell does he know my birthday if I've only seen him like maybe 10 times in my lifetime here in Merced? So just to start off here, what's so important about the youth vote here in the Central Valley, and why do you think that is an essential weapon, to help the city of Merced move forward based on your own experience?
Well, certainly the youth vote is very important in terms of establishing quality representation throughout your city. But me personally, I wouldn't look at, let's say, the youth vote as like a category unto its own that's exclusive from, let's say, the senior vote or the middle class vote or the upper class vote or lower class vote. And I'm specifically only referring to Merced, because here in Merced, what I truly believe is that everybody in this area is all deeply connected. You may not realize it, but somebody that you met knows somebody else that you know, and you didn't even know that relationship existed. And so we for example, we talk a lot about like South Merced and North Merced, but really a lot of people in North Merced, they have family in South Merced and vice versa. So it's not like moving to like, another side of town is going to make you immune to the drugs and the poverty and crime and the bad things. And it also won't separate you from the good things about us, the small town vibe, faith, family, hard work, the things that make Merced Merced. Yes, the youth vote is very important because it's important to understand where you're from and to take pride in where you're from and to try to help build where you're from. But I would say that those things are not exclusive to an age group. Everyone should feel like they can change their town for the better. Everyone should feel like they have pride in their town and they're a part of their government. But to do it at the youth level, now you are setting the pace for how you're going to grow into that as an adult. Certainly, when I was in college, I was a voter in college, but I am not the same person today that I was back then. However, I could not have become the person I am today without going through what I went through back then. So I guess in terms of the youth vote, it is certainly important because it's a step in their growth and in their understanding of their community. But I would not consider it as an exclusive group to target so I can gain favorability with them. What I'm trying to do is tell all of Merced what I believe for Merced, what I believe is our vision, where I believe we should be going as a town based on my experiences living here and based on the things I've seen and the voices I've heard here. And that is not just the business owners or just North Merced or just South Merced or just industry. That's everyone. And it must include everyone, because the way I see it, as a community, we are like a body, and every body has different parts of the body, and one part of the body can't say to the other part of the body, this is how you do it, when that's not the part. The hand can't tell the foot how to walk, the foot can't tell the eye how to see. But that
so who's the brain in this case?
Well, I suppose that if you look at our city council, these are the people that we elect to represent us. So in that sense, they are basically the face of the city. And what the council decides is basically ends up being the action and the thoughts of the body, because we elect them to do that. And sometimes you see that certain council members may not be reflecting the needs of the community with what they want to get done, but they may be reflecting a very small group of people. And when that happens, what do you see at City Hall? You see turmoil. Well, it's the same thing with someone's physical body. If you are out of sorts with your body, you're going to have problems physically, whether it's muscle issues or whether it's health deficiencies or whatever. So from a metaphorical standpoint, I believe that if we're all on the same page working together as a community, then we are a healthy body. We have harmony. But if we are off, or if we have divergent agendas, or if we're moving, one group wants to move this way, one group wants to move that way, now you see the calamity, now you see the turmoil, because we are not a unified body. But as you are probably well aware, a person is capable of anything. So if we become a unified body, that literally means that we are capable of anything.
Do you remember the first time that you voted in your life? And you mentioned that you were in college while this happened, if I'm correct. And what did that mean to you at that time? And how different is it now that you are a candidate, running against an institution that, was supposed to serve, of course, the interest of all its people, especially young people who are at the verge of shaping the future of Merced?
I'm pretty sure I was 18 when there was a presidential election happening. And let me see here. All right, so I'm pretty sure George Bush won the first time when I was a freshman, and then he ran again, and he won when I was a senior. And I graduated by that point, I think. So I believe I did vote in that election. And I'm pretty sure I didn't vote for either person. I believe it was George Bush and John Kerry, I think. You're taking me back. I'm dating myself here. But
what did you feel at the time? Like, was there something in your mind that pretty much told you that if I could vote in this election, then I could vote in any other election? Because usually when young people, tend to vote for the first time, just after they register to vote, they have this sense of feeling that, things are expected to go in the right direction as soon as that preferred candidate wins. And then say in a matter of time, it doesn't really happen. Did it feel like that in a certain way back when you voted for the first time?
I guess you could say that to a certain extent, because, when you're, and okay, so having, grown up in this area, when I was, this is sort of a conservative area, I'm sure you can tell. But when I was younger, as many young people are, I wasn't exactly as conservative as probably the majority of people here. I was maybe more open to change, more open to new ideas. And so when one thing that I learned early on, like maybe in my teens, 16, 17, 18, 19, I started to discover like what it really meant to have conservative versus liberal, and what that meant to be a conservative viewpoint versus a liberal viewpoint. And that was something that I've heard about, but I never really understood the depth of it. And then you get into college, and then you start taking classes, you learn a little bit about political science. And me personally, I study history, and I ended up learning, hey, wait a minute, these Republicans and Democrats, they're actually the same. They switch values over time, over generations. Things that these people used to believe in are now things these people now believe in, and vice versa. So I became very almost cynical to the whole party, political parties. I've always been sort of on guard when it comes to joining a political party. And so I've never really done that. And even unto this day, I'm still independent. I don't prefer to be in a political party, but studying that in college and realizing that, hey, wait a minute, over the generations, these things sort of flip. And this makes me realize, maybe I shouldn't be a part of a party. Maybe I should just do my own thing, be my own person, and vote either side, depending on who I appreciate as the person. And usually when it comes to things like the national elections, I usually don't try to get too invested in the national election of who's running for senator or who's running for president, because I really don't think that what you hear in the media is exactly how it's going to go. I guess what I'm getting at is that when a candidate runs for like senator or president or things like that, and they start making you all these promises and start attacking the other side of how they're all this and they're all that, but I'm this and I'm that. To me, it seems like I don't really know exactly what you're going to do when you're in office. Yes, you're saying all the right things now, but I'm so far removed from Washington, D.C. that how do I know what they're really up to? And I think that nowadays, in this current time we're in, you see a lot of that. You see a lot of like establishment politicians. And for example, they will call out Donald Trump on all the bad stuff he's done. And certainly, I'm certain, obviously he has a list of well-documented things that he's done in his past. But if you look at what his answer to that is, he just basically calls out other careerist politicians for the wicked things they've done over their career. And so when it gets to that level, it's kind of like, geez, that's almost kind of true, is that one side says, well, this man's this, and they may be right. But then the other side says, well, look what they're doing. And now it's like, okay, so who do you really trust? Me personally, I try to take everything that these national politicians say with a grain of salt. I try to not get too personally invested that this is my guy and I stand by him and I love him. I personally believe that you never really know exactly what someone's going to do when their feet are held to the fire, when the public pressure is on, or when people with power and wealth and money are going after them. How are they going to stand up for their principles? Are they going to compromise? You don't know. And I'm not suggesting that our current candidates or anybody else running for national office is bad or I'm better than them or anything like that. I'm simply just saying that when it comes to the national politics and candidates at large, because I'm so far removed from them, I tend to be a little bit on guard of how much I personally invest in them. But as far as the local level, as far as like, who you're voting for, let's say your House representative or your city council or your school board, I think this is really what matters to people in terms of your own personal quality of life. Because if you're not really sure about, I don't know, your school board or your city council, what they do will have an immediate direct impact on your quality of life. The national news, they'll make some decisions and those will eventually trickle down to you and they can affect your life. But at the end of the day, America's still going to go. America's still going to move forward, no matter who wins. Certain people may not like who wins, but that doesn't necessarily mean that just because we don't like the national candidate that won, that we can't in our own place create a better home for us. And even if somebody that does win that we do like, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can just sit back and say, hey, everything's great now because my guy won. No, you still have to work to make your home the best place it could be, to make your area the best place it can be. Otherwise, the world will change it for you if you're not aware of how to change it yourself for the better.
It just comes down to the notion that bipartisanship has primarily been seen as a guarantee, on any conversation or on any debate that is held within any institution. And the fact that all elections matter, we have eventually downgraded into the sense that bipartisanship is no longer rewarded, but rather the polarization of this country based on the nature of media coverage that is being speculated by the mainstream media for the sake of ratings and for corporate profit as well. But just to pinpoint at where Merced currently stands right now, because as we mentioned earlier, right, a lot of people tend to have different perceptions of what Merced is, especially from a young person's standpoint. That sometimes we tend to align ourselves with the perception from the mass media in terms of what Merced really is versus the local people here who actually know what Merced is really about. When you're seeing mainstream media price out local journalism, like price out like local school newspapers that have been around these towns, for decades, you only have so much left to tell a story about a city, than rather have like a network with a bigger audience tell the story for you. So in that regard, like, do you think because of those strings attached and those outside factors that kind of shape the narratives of Merced's politics, do you think that's changed over time? Or do you think it has become more partisan / polarized?
Well, I definitely think that what happens on the national scene, or as far as like the national media and their coverage of politics, I think that definitely affects Merced, and it certainly has affected Merced over the years, in terms of people identifying, like, if you're a conservative, let's say, well, what does that mean then to be a conservative? Because I don't know, I guess when I look at it, I remember when Donald Trump first became a candidate for president, and a lot of people in this area that were Republicans were basically laughing it off, like, oh, you know what? I mean, that's cool. I like being a Republican, but I don't know if I like him because of the things he says or does. But then he started gaining real steam, and then before you know it, people are now all of a sudden very proud to say they're fans of Donald Trump. And so I guess you sort of see, and that's, I don't think that's exclusive to Merced. I think that was kind of how maybe the Republican Party at large was when he first came along, and just kind of shrugged him off like, man, he's too this or he's too that in order to really be a serious candidate. But then as he starts gaining more and more momentum, people start signing up, and next thing you know, now he's basically very prominent within the party. He can pretty much do no wrong. But I guess I use that as an example because it's current, sort of, but it's also sort of shows how, this area, they responded to that as well. And so you kind of see the national trend having an influence on this area then as well. But I do believe that for a very long time in Merced, we've always sort of maintained our own identity of who we were, and we didn't really get too caught up in like the national news media. But then COVID hit, and I definitely believe that COVID accelerated a lot of that here. I sort of remember being on council and thinking like, man, these things that you hear about in the news, these national trends, they happen in this area, they happen in that area, but I'm glad they don't really happen in Merced. And then it seems like after COVID hit and everybody's locked up and you got to be on your phones all the time and you got to be on the computer all the time to do things, it's almost like that really accelerated the process of people being connected to the mainstream media and heavily influenced by it. And then you see things going on in Merced that you wouldn't even imagine would ever happen before, whether it's like the Merced Mall, where the jewelry store, the smash and grab. I mean, you see that in the news, you think, oh, that wouldn't happen in Merced, and then boom, happens in Merced. Like, what the heck? You see like the Amazon train, the train carts, how they'd be like ripped open and merchandise everywhere. You see that on the news, and you think, oh wow, that's crazy. And then next thing you know, all of a sudden it's happening in Merced. It's like, what? And so it just sort of seems like the stuff that you used to watch on TV and be like, man, I'm glad I live in Merced. I'm glad that happened here. All of a sudden, now little miniature versions of that are starting to happen here. And even, I mean, I guess there's good with the bad. Like some of these things are not necessarily good or bad. They're just political. Like, for example, the UC campus protests a few months back. You saw those, in the news and other places and all that. And then all of a sudden now we have our own miniature version of it here. And so that's an example of I guess the media helping to bring forth certain political motivations that maybe weren't as strong here as they used to be.
Now, you served at the city council, back in 2016 until 2020, and from that point on, for those who don't know, like you launched your campaign for mayor against a familiar friend of yours, now Mayor Matt Serrato. What do you remember most about that particular mayoral race, and how different is it from this current mayoral race that you're at right now, despite the rematch? But what do you think makes this election so different compared to the 2020 election?
Well, I mean, I just believe that it's a different time. I think that in 2020, it was a certain time, and I've always been the type of person, I do things based off of where I feel I'm supposed to be or where I feel I'm supposed to be going. It's truly an instinct thing, a sentimental thing. And I believed that I needed to run that campaign and I needed to run it in that way. And I couldn't explain to you why I needed to do that. I just felt like it was right in that sense. And obviously I didn't win, but shortly afterwards, a new opportunity opened up for me. And then I was able to pursue that. And after pursuing that and that ended, then something else opened and something else opened. And all of that led me to here. And so I guess what I'm getting at is I believe that it's the times that make the man, not the other way around. And so that simply means that at that time, it went the way it went for a reason that I accept and understand, because if that never would have happened, I wouldn't know the things I know now. I wouldn't have the wisdom and understanding and knowledge that I have now. And to be honest, when I left that council, we had some pretty good things going for our city. And our city was, Mayor Murphy termed the phrase, the city on the rise. And there were a lot of people that truly felt that we were on the rise. And so, I think it was good for people, but also it's important for me to go follow my own path and go do the things that I needed to do and learn the things that I needed to learn. And then new council members come along, the people can now see how other people do and other perspectives they have. And maybe there are people now that miss me on that council. Maybe there are people now that understand that I helped to do a lot of good on that council. And I don't know, maybe there's people that don't want me back on that council. I don't know. But I guess what I would say is the ability to live life and understand and experience. This is something that everyone must treasure, because life is always trying to teach us. Life is always trying to help us grow. Sometimes we want things to go a certain way, and when they don't go our way, we tend to close our hearts off as to the reason why. What is the growth here that we can learn? But we become so caught up in what we think we need to have right now. And then when we don't get it, we don't get why. And then we get frustrated and annoyed and angry. And I've sort of learned to evolve beyond that and really take it into my heart that everything happens for a reason, and it's all about your perspective. It's all about your state of mind on how you want to interpret it and how you want to view it. You can either look at it as something that happened that will help you grow and develop, or you can look at it as something that happened that I didn't like, and now I got to figure out how to change it, or I'm bitter about it. And I would say that as a person, over the last, let's call it 2 years, I really learned a lot more in terms of my own character, my own personality, who I am as a person and who I want to be as a person. The truest sense of who Anthony Martinez is. This is what I've been discovering over the last 2 years. And I believe this is what has made me most prepared to be the mayor that I want to be. And this is why I believe this time is now different for me. And I'm doing this campaign a lot more differently. And I believe now, and I'm still following the same formula as before, where I'm just following my heart and doing what I believe is right and doing what I believe is necessary for me. And a big part of me is this city and the people of this city. This is why I left for college in LA, but came back to be a teacher here. I came back to coach here and be a council member here and help this city evolve and grow. Because to me, this city is like my family. And I believe that what I'm good at is bringing people together. And what I'm good at is helping to bring out the best in people. And I believe that right now, this is the time where our city really needs that. Our city really needs our people to come together to overcome the issues that have always haunted us. Our city really needs a catalyst for change that can help us evolve into a brighter Merced, the Merced of tomorrow, a new Merced. And I don't think 4 years ago I had the capability to do that. Even though in my heart, I probably wanted to do that. I don't think I was ready for that. But now, because of the experience that life has taken me through, now I feel most prepared to do that. And this is why I truly believe it's the times now, and it's simply my time now. And this is what I feel in my heart, and this is why I'm walking this path. And I would say, because I'm an average Mercedian, it's not just my time now. It's all of our time now to come together and help evolve this place for the better.
But in terms of policy, though, like, what do you think makes it so different from the past mayoral race that you were a part of versus this current mayoral race that you were a part of? Because, at a certain extent, there were top-notch policies in Merced in 2020 that gained higher ground with the majority of local residents here in Merced. And I'm sure you could say the same thing in this election. But what makes it so different in terms of policy? Because what young people tend to really know about this is that, like, yes, we are aware that certain things have happened in the past that kind of shaped the trajectory of where we're heading, right, in terms of the future of Merced. Because for one, right, most policy issues, right, that young people would always talk about is affordable housing, sustainability, and public safety, and at the same time, representation. And do you think that has changed in some ways in this election? What current policies in Merced are popular for young people, do you think? And how different is that from the 2020 election and the past mayoral race you were in?
Well, I think there are certain issues that tend to evolve and maybe even issues that reemerge. Like, for example, I remember being in the 2020 election. I'm running for election. I'm at this debate, Association of Realtors, and they started asking me about like rent control and things like that. And I was starting, and in my head, I was thinking, all right, here in Merced, when it comes to rent control, I don't necessarily know if that's the issue that people are going to galvanize around. Not that it's not important, but what I saw happening was rent control is kind of the issue of yesterday. What's coming up right now is affordable housing. And what I mean by that is that the conversation then is evolving. It's still about like how we can help others. It's still about, how we can make housing more available. Because obviously if you're trying to put in rent control policies, what you're really trying to do is make it easier for people to live, for people to afford things. So now that conversation then evolves into affordable housing. Well, how can we bring affordable housing units in? And then maybe that'll help, make things more affordable for people. So I guess at the core, it's still the same concerns. How do we make things better for Merced when it comes to livability? How do we make houses more affordable for Mercedians to own? But the way in which you go about that has tended to evolve. if I were being cynical, I'd probably say that there's a lot of maybe outside groups or outside money that come into town and try to get some momentum going about a certain political issue here or there. And sometimes maybe affordable housing has fallen into that. But when it comes to issues like housing, it's obviously very important to get all perspectives from all sides. And I think that's, if I could say, one of the things that I probably haven't appreciated about the conversation around affordable housing is it's become so polarized as either you're humane and you care about others, and that's why you have the perspective you have, or you're just a realtor who only cares about their business and making money. And I believe that characterization is very untrue for both sides. I mean, I believe that there are a lot of quality people in Merced. Some of these realtors, let's say, or some of these developers, let's say, these are not evil, wicked people. These are not people connected to some cabal that do wicked things behind closed doors and exert unduly influence. They're normal, regular Mercedes that care about things like you and me. And on the other side of that, the people that are clamoring, for tremendous change, that want certain policies enacted here that haven't been enacted here before, they're not looking to necessarily ruin others. They simply want a better avenue so people can thrive. So more than just a certain group of people can afford Merced. And so I think that when it comes to the politics, because of what we were talking about earlier, how things have magnified when it comes to the polarization of things, it is very difficult then for both sides to come together to create a policy that truly represents Merced. Because at the end of the day, if we're talking about development, or if we're talking about affordable housing, or how are we going to bring in certain programs, certain policies to Merced, it is very important that we have compromise among these things from both sides of the aisle. We cannot just either always go with this group says or always go with that group says, because that's just going to lead to further polarization, further disruption of who we are as a community. It stops us from unifying. And so that's kind of one of the, I guess, unfortunate things that I've seen. But I don't believe that it's necessarily a barrier that we can't overcome, because I also believe that both, whatever side you're on when it comes to how we're executing affordable policy here, people want the same thing. They simply want a better Merced that's more affordable, that they can, raise their kids and have good quality of life and make some good memories and fall in love with this town. I don't believe that anybody's necessarily looking to get over on anybody else around here. I mean, sure, there's always going to be bad people, but as groups at large, industries at large, I don't think the people here that are homegrown here are really trying to hurt one another so one can stay down and the other can stay up. But it does get characterized like that a lot, especially in the media, especially when you have different opposing groups going to city council speaking on things. And I think it is absolutely necessary that different people from the community speak on things. I think that is very important, that no matter what side you're on, that you show up and you voice what you think. And I believe it's equally important that the council members look at each person as not as a person of influence or a person of who you are or who you have behind you, but simply as your one vote, your one vote, your one vote. Well, if we're all one vote, then we all matter the same. All of our voices truly matter. And if you can take this into perspective, then you can come up with a compromise that both sides are going to have to give a little, but both sides will also, in the name of respect, in the name of coming together, be okay with. They may not be 100% comfortable with certain things, but in the end they would realize, in the spirit of coming together, that compromise is necessary, and you're probably going to get the best solution for everyone if you enact that compromise. So I don't know, that's policy. Definitely affordable housing has been a big one, but really a lot of different things that youth care about, whether it's social justice, affordable housing, getting people off the streets into facilities that can help them get a better life. I don't know if this is exclusive to the youth. I think this is across pretty much all people in Merced. All of us want something to be done about the homeless. All of us want something to be done about the crime rate and the poverty and the drugs and things like that. We may have different perspectives on how we get there, but there is no solving these issues without everyone involved. You have to have multiple perspectives involved so you are wise enough to do what's best for the town at large, not just those with power influence or those who are yelling the loudest at the time.
Just following up from the Canada Forum, you strongly argued, that affordable housing, should be addressed by all parties, involved in terms of where affordable housing should be put in place. But just narrowing down to a young voter's understanding, of what affordable housing is and what shapes affordable housing and what's impacting the pace of affordable housing. I'm here in Merced just for a second. We've noticed that affordable housing can run its own ballgame on its own without, of course, a system, to manifest them. And sadly, the way that we've seen affordable housing play out is that we've seen lots of private equity firms, and other outside investors, just take on houses that are no longer valuable or that are being depreciated. And consequentially, it's pricing out local residents and in turn, young people, who desperately need affordable housing here in Merced. Now, yes, it's important to point out that we have seen some major progress in affordable housing, like the Merced Station, despite the scandal that it went through due to construction delay that almost left close to 700 students unhoused at the time. Talking about the new affordable housing developments, especially the one near Moraga, right just across from Merced Station, where it's supposed to house UC Merced students and Merced College students at the same time. But despite just the city's record in affordable housing, how would you argue the city's approach to affordable housing from the time that you were at the city council back then versus now, considering that there's been major factors affecting?
Well, I think the more I was on council back then, the more I was learning about, I guess, the industry at large. Because here's the thing: we're kind of talking microeconomics meets macroeconomics. We're talking about things that happen at the national level that can genuinely affect what's happening right here in town, and things at the state level that can affect what's happening here in town. When I was on council, we were mostly just concerned with, all right, let's just get some building going, because we had such a tight vacancy rate. I think we were like 1% or something. So we were just trying to build whatever we could build, just to get more homes up as quickly as possible, and hopefully that would help alleviate the ability for people to even find a home, let alone be able to qualify to buy it. Could you even find one? And then, kind of as you alluded to, you started seeing a lot of outside agencies swooping up these things eventually. And so maybe certain policy did become necessary to make sure that when if they're building out certain neighborhoods, we have a certain balance of homes. So it's not just like, essentially, you could get like a good side of town and a bad side of town, a side that's developed all these single family homes, and then another side of town where they're just building apartment complexes and low income housing. Well, nobody wants to have that in Merced, because you don't want like literally the other side of the tracks. You want things to be balanced, and you want to have, balanced neighborhoods. When we go to school, for example, you should see the way the schools are designed when it comes to the demographics. I work at El Capitan High. We have to bus kids from South Merced, we're talking like south of McNamara Park, in some cases south of Childs, to El Cap, because we're not meeting certain quotas when it comes to certain classes of people that need to be in our public schools. Well, the reason why this is because we haven't developed certain amounts of housing on the northern side of town, whether it's, let's say, more apartment complexes. And now, as El Cap has been open now for 10 years, you're starting to see certain housing develop like that, like in let's say R in Yosemite. They put apartment complexes out there recently, or they're planning to as well. But I guess what I'm getting at is that you had to be very careful about having that balance when your community is developing. There's so much, there's so many nuances when it comes to development that people generally aren't aware of. And when you realize, it takes a while to learn the game of what these other people are really trying to do to your town. It's kind of funny. One thing that I learned, for example, let's say a developer comes to town, they buy this chunk of land, and then they promise the community, they're going to do X, Y, and Z, and they get the approvals. Well, as soon as they get those approvals, now that property has become worth more. So what do? Sell it to somebody else. And once you sell it to somebody else, now that person now has to get acquired with it and decide when they're going to build. So the community never really knows when they're going to get the thing they were promised. And sometimes what ends up happening is developers say, we're going to do this, this, and this, and we approve it. Looks nice and neat. Public loves it. And then as time goes on, next thing you know, maybe a year goes by, here come the alterations to the plans, which don't get nearly as much publicity. And then alterations to the plans, maybe there's past, not really talked about. And next thing you know, the development gets made and people are thinking, hey, wait a minute, I thought we were going to have a hotel here, a restaurant here, and now we have a gas station and a Starbucks. What happened? And they don't realize that, well, there's a deeper game going on when it comes to the industry of development. And if you're not wise to that, then you're going to get taken advantage of in some respects. And I think, I don't know, when you look at how we're developing in Merced, sometimes there's multiple agencies that need to be involved. And depending on how well they're all on the same page, this could truly affect the development of Merced. When I look at, let's say, for example, the UC, and I look at the Virginia Smith Trust, and I look at I look at how it was originally designed, where Campus Parkway connects to Bellevue, where Bellevue is supposed to be 4 lanes connecting to Campus Parkway, which is 4 lanes. So now you have infrastructure for serious traffic to flow through. Well, that was in the general plan originally, and now it seems like that is not materializing at all. They connected Campus Parkway to Yosemite. But Yosemite is now 2 lanes. So this means we go from 4 lanes to 2. Now all of a sudden it bottlenecks traffic. You look at what's happened to Bellevue. Bellevue was supposed to be expanded by the UC, but it has yet to be expanded into 4 lanes. So now you basically have an increased traffic on Lake Road and on Yosemite that were never designed to handle that type of traffic. And you really don't have alternate routes of where people can go beyond those roads in order to travel from, Campus Parkway over to Bellevue. So how are you going to now grow the town the way your schematics say you're going to grow the town when you don't have the infrastructure in place to handle the traffic? And so this is kind of in my opinion, this may be a result of different agencies like the UC, like the city, like the county, like the Virginia Smith Trust, simply not on the same page of how they're going to bring out this development. But since they're all doing their own thing and they're all trying to make progress happen at the same time within their own agency, we get more development, but we never really get synchronized development that can maximize what it really was supposed to be. And instead, it almost becomes like a shell of what it could have been. And so I'm not really sure exactly what's going to happen with that Virginia Smith Trust area and how they're going to develop it. But I am concerned that the agencies that are a part of this, I don't know how much they are on the same page as to how we're going to build out the infrastructure. I don't know how well all these agencies are on the same page when it comes to fire services, when it comes to police services, when it comes to sewer capacity. But I promise you, any one of those things that I just mentioned can pretty much kill all the hopes and dreams that you were thinking were going to happen with this area. That isn't to say that something won't develop. Something will develop, but it may not be what you thought it was going to be. And then people are left wondering, why didn't this turn out the way we were promised? Well, maybe a lot of it had to do with just having a vision and people not being on the same page with that vision. And so I think, if elected, this is a big area where I would try to help unify these agencies so we can make sure we have the infrastructure necessary to build out these dreams that we really have, because these are good dreams. These are good plans. I believe in these things. But in order to make these things happen, we have to be a little bit more pragmatic in how we're going to execute these things. And that starts with getting on the same page.
Well, for the sake of accountability, do you think the city of Merced has got it right, or was really good at balancing all types of homes and affordable housing developments that have gone over the years?
No, the short answer is no. I guess, and I don't say no to try to place fault on anybody in particular. What I would say is that as a city over the last, let's say 5-6 years, we have been, well, let's go back even further. Let's call it the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. Coming out of the previous economic downturn, which really hurt our area, we were just basically trying to find our stride again. And because we're trying to find our stride again, we're not really very particular or discriminate as to who wants to do what. It's kind of just like, come bring jobs to the area, come build things so we can hire people and we can get this economy going again. And hopefully that will get us on the right direction. But eventually, once you start to have the momentum of increased population, increased UC crowd, increased graduates that are getting jobs that pay higher wages, now all of a sudden we have leverage as a city where we can be a little bit more discriminate on how our neighborhoods develop and what kind of neighborhoods are bringing to the area. And so I think maybe towards the end of the last couple of years of my first term, maybe it's 2018 up until now, we have been much more financially sound as a city. And so when you have that financial stability, now you have true leverage when it comes to these developers. You have a little bit more influence when it comes to working with other agencies about how you want it to go for your town. If you're desperate for money, or if you're desperate for jobs, you're desperate for traction on how to move forward, you might get taken a little bit of advantage of, and you might have to, I don't know, I guess learn from that. But as you become stronger and as you become more aware of what your community can and can't handle, now you gain the power to sort of dictate how you want to evolve. And that involves, holding people accountable for the things they say they're going to do. And that involves having a vision of your own that you try to give to others so they can get on board with you. And it involves informing your community and keeping your community involved in the changes in their city. A lot of people, especially going out towards the UC, they might not like certain types of change. And much of that might be because, they don't want their area to change that they lived with 20, 30 years. But another part of that might simply be because they may be weary of elected officials and their agenda. They may be weary of what might come to their area if it does change, because they're not the ones making these changes, and they don't really know who's making these changes. So how do they know that this person who's supposedly elected to represent me has my best interests at hand? So, and I would say that that's something that we shouldn't, we should embrace people that are skeptical about that, because if I was a homeowner, I'd be skeptical too. But if you can embrace these people and let them know what you're trying to do, and then take their concerns into consideration, and these are legitimate concerns that they have. They know the area, they live in the area. So let's take their concerns into consideration here and come up with a further compromise of how we can make this best for everyone. If you can approach it like that, you're going to gain trust over time. And when you gain the trust over time, people will be willing to put up with a little more, give you a little more slack, because they know you have a vision, they know you care, and they know that they can impact their community because you trust them, and you're going to give them your attention. You're going to give them your consideration when they have to speak on something.
Can you walk us through your understanding on how you see Merced's annexation to the city of Merced will definitely impact the future of Merced in terms of economic development? And I ask this, because it seems that most young people here in Merced, especially UC Merced students, still don't find themselves kind of play a role in this.
Yeah, I mean, I would say overall, the annexation of the UC is going to be a positive for the city, and it should be a positive. But in the immediate future, I have genuine concerns that I think need a lot of attention. If, for example, you see the county that's struggling with emergency services, whether it's fire or whether it's a sheriff's, and the city now has to step in to sort of cover some of that. But then you look at how we're expanding to the UC. So now the city is what? Are we expected to now cover services for the UC and the county and our residents? This may present a bit of a problem because, I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but we tend to have some violence in this area. We tend to have some thievery in this area. We tend to have some dangerous crimes that happen in this area. Lots of fires in this area, whether abandoned buildings or fields or whatever. The point I'm making is I don't know how good of a position we're in to be able to cover all these extra areas without sacrificing services to our own residents. And that's something that I certainly don't want to have happen. I believe it's good to bring in the UC, but I also believe that you need to make sure that the UC is ready to cover expanded area that's going to be under their influence, essentially. Because if you start building neighborhoods out there and you start having businesses out there, obviously their police can get to those issues quicker than our police. And if they don't have a fire out there, and our closest fire station is miles away, and something happens, now we're putting serious people at risk. And certainly business owners, developers understand that. So when they come to town to do business and they look at, okay, there's not a fire department for quite some time away, and these emergency resources might be a little strained, I'm sure they have to consider how might that affect me? How might that hurt my project? Or if there's an emergency, what could happen, to what I'm trying to build? And I believe that's a legitimate concern that we really need to be cognizant of. That doesn't mean we need to, shut down annexing. I think it's a good thing that we're moving forward there. But I also believe, once again, you need multiple agencies on the same page talking about how we're going to bring this execution into fruition as efficiently as possible and as effective for the residents as possible. I think a lot of what has kind of happened is you want to just get it going so you can say we're building, so you can say change is happening, so you can say things are going. But if you don't take the time to thoroughly plan out how are you going to cover these real issues, infrastructure like roads, things like the sewer, things like fire, police, these are real problems that can seriously hinder a development. So if you don't have multiple agencies on the same page of how we're going to handle this together, you put yourself at risk. And so I think that the UC annexation has the potential to be tremendous for the city of Merced, but it also will challenge us as a city and challenge other agencies to come together and work on a vision for how we're going to carry this out. Some people might think that that's, I don't know, a barrier. I look at it as an opportunity. I look at it as an opportunity to strengthen our relationships, strengthen our partnerships, and create a true vision for how we're going to execute this. And once we all have that and feel comfortable with that, I think sky's the limit on how we can develop this area.
And just to finalize this here, where do you see the future of Merced kick off after the 2024 election? Despite the fact that anything could happen, on this certain occasion, we know certain things are in progress. We know certain things might be pending. We know other things are kind of deadlocked or shut down for good. But how consequential do you believe the Gen Z vote will be in this election that will potentially, bring people together, no matter what side of the aisle you're on?
Well, I think it's definitely crucial for the future of our town. But I also think, I guess what I would say is that when it comes to Merced, and when it comes to this election in particular, people really need to look in their hearts and decide what they truly want for their town. When I'm on the campaign trail, when I'm talking to business owners or neighbors or things like that, I'm very forward about how I want to change the city. I don't hesitate with the reality that I'm not here for business as usual. I'm not here to just get through the day. I believe that it's time now to evolve from that. It's time now for change. And I have genuine ideas on how we can execute this change. And so really, it comes down to the community, including Gen Z, to decide, do they want the way things are now to continue forward? Or do they want to evolve from that and change from that? I'm pitching, when it comes to, our biggest issues, crime, homelessness, poverty, drugs, etc. I mean, I'm pitching real change in the way we do things, not just the city, but even working with the county to change things up, adding more things that are traditionally under the county's purview with the city, because we have more resources to manage them better than the county may at this point. But I guess what I'm getting at is, usually in this town, and I'm not talking about the last 4 years, I'm talking about the last 4 decades, because that's how long I've been here. I'm 38. It's almost like, if you don't know the right person, if you don't have the right contact and you want to do something, good luck getting it done, because you need to know the right people in order to get it done. But I believe that has stifled us over time. That has hurt our ability to evolve and to grow, because genuine people with real ideas, it's hard to get them off the ground. And so most people end up just resorting to the way we've always done things. It's familiar and it's what people know. And it's eventually what people believe is all Merced can be. But then when you look at the effect of that, when you look at the ability to evolve beyond the things that have always plagued us, and you look at how homelessness is getting worse, or you look at how things are more prevalent that didn't used to be as prevalent, whether it's fires in our buildings, whether it's businesses boarded up, whether it's the smash and grabs at the mall, like I mentioned, I mean, the theater, the mall, I don't know. It just seems like there's so many things that are happening now. And the way I look at it as, what is the point of all these bad things happening if we can't learn from them, if we can't evolve beyond them? Isn't that the point of why these barriers are happening to us? So we can understand it, so we can learn from it, and so we can wise up and evolve beyond it. And so I believe that if you're truly looking to just keep going through the day, keep business as usual, then I'm probably not the right person. But I don't believe that's where Merced is right now. I don't believe that's the time for Merced right now. I believe that so many people in Merced have seen what they've seen and experienced what they've experienced for so long that they're done with that. They want change. They want evolution. They want change for the better, and they want to be able to help bring that change. They want the town to come together and be a catalyst. And I truly believe, I'm not talking about, let's make our town like Fresno. Let's make our town like Stockton. Let's make our town like what they do over here or what they do over there. I'm not suggesting you can't learn from other areas. I'm suggesting we need to become Merced, the Merced we were meant to be, the Merced we are supposed to be. That is different than other towns. It is uniquely us. And we must embrace that. We must embrace who we are as a community, the values here that you learn that make you successful here, and the bad things of the past that have been here. We need to embrace all of these things so we can take an honest look at who we are. And when we take an honest look at who we are by embracing the way things have been here, and this may include pointing out certain faults, admitting that, you know what, certain things here haven't always gone well. We have certain health deficiencies here, diabetes, teen pregnancy, asthma, heart disease. We have terrible numbers when it comes to these types of things, but that doesn't mean we're terrible people. It simply means that we have problems here that we need to learn from and evolve beyond. And so I think when you look at, this coming election, what it really boils down to is, do you want the way things are going to keep going the way they have, or are you ready for change? In my opinion, change for the better, evolution. That's sort of my approach, and that's what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to bring people together so we can utilize all the ideas from all across our community to really help create this town, the Merced, that the average Mercedians want it to be.
And that is Anthony Martinez. He's currently the mayoral candidate for Merced Mayor in the 2024 election. Mr. Martinez, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you.
Don't forget to check us out on YouTube and Spotify. Peace out.